$250,000. That was the fine my HOA sent me on my own land. But by the time they realized their mistake, I legally owned their entire neighborhood. After I opened that letter, my coffee went cold, my chicken scattered, and my quiet retirement exploded like a landmine. Hey, friends! Before we dive into this unbelievable showdown, I just want to say how much I appreciate you watching these stories. If you enjoy real-life David versus Goliath tales where honesty wins over arrogance, tap that like. Make sure you're subscribed, and let's jump straight into the madness that started it all. That Tuesday began like any other. Then came the certified envelope from Sunset Hills Homeowners Association, embossed in gold so shiny it practically sneered at me. Inside, 3 major violations: illegal fence placement, unauthorized structures, and encroachment on community green space. I laughed until I saw the number. $250,000. My fence had stood there for 30 years. Same place my father built it back when this land was open fields. The unauthorized structures. My wife Jane's beloved gazebo, my chicken coop, and my shed. The encroachment? My vegetable garden. Apparently, tomatoes were now a threat to luxury lawns. But within hours, the HOA president herself, Sophia Blackstone, strutted across my yard, heels clicking like a metronome of entitlement. Clipboard ready, smile non-existent, Mr. Harrison. I'm documenting violations before legal proceedings, she declared, pointing at everything my wife and I ever built. I showed her my original deed from 1973. She waved it away. Irrelevant, she said. That single word flipped a switch inside me. I'd spent 45 years as a surveyor. If anyone knew where property lines lived, it was me, and I was about to remind everyone. As Sophia turned to leave, threatening lawsuits and liens, I noticed something in that letter that didn't sit right. A survey dated 5 years after their houses were built. Why would anyone resurvey finished mansions? The answer would blow their manicured world apart. That night, I dug out my old surveying gear, dusty GPS unit, metal stakes, the instruments of my trade. If these people wanted to challenge property lines, they'd picked the wrong old man. Under the porch light, I took preliminary readings. When the coordinates flashed on my handheld, my heart hammered. My fence wasn't too far in, it was too far back. My land extended farther than the HOA claimed, possibly under several of their luxury driveways. The next morning, I called Jake Miller, an independent surveyor and old friend. After hearing the story, he went quiet, then said, "Walter, this smells worse than low tide. Let's get you a full modern survey." 3 weeks later, Jake rolled in with enough equipment to map the moon. Laser scanners, base stations, laptop humming with satellite data. By end of week 1, GPS readings proved my property stretched 50 to 75 feet beyond my fence in multiple directions. Week 2, we found buried iron stakes, original survey markers, hidden under imported turf. Each discovery was another nail in the HOA's coffin. Sophia's mansion, with its glittering infinity pool and tennis court, sat entirely on my land. Nathan Cross's 4-car garage? Mine. Elena Foster's sprawling master suite? Mine. Jackson Murphy's outdoor kitchen and pizza oven? Mine. Bethany Wells's ornate front fountain? You guessed it. Jake leaned on his tripod and muttered, "Walter, this isn't an accident. It's a coordinated land grab." The numbers didn't lie. Over $2 million worth of structures built illegally across my 8 acres. Then came the smoking gun, that 2010 survey referenced in my violation notice. Jake traced the supposed surveying company, except it had gone out of business in 2008. The signatures were forgeries. The coordinates fabricated. Somebody had created fake documents to legitimize stolen land. Betty Harris, my neighbor for 25 years, confirmed she'd seen crews moving my original fence markers during mansion construction. Back then, she'd believed their talk about updated boundaries. Now we both knew it had been one long con. If the fraud went this deep, we weren't just dealing with nosy neighbors. We were standing on the edge of the biggest property scandal our county had ever seen, and I had the evidence that could topple them all. Jake's 40-page report landed on my kitchen table like a courtroom grenade. Precise coordinates, satellite imagery, and annotated photos, all proving my ownership beyond dispute. He looked at me and said, "Walter, you own parts of 5 mansions." That realization carried both triumph and dread. Being right and proving you're right are 2 very different battles. So I called my lawyer friend Jim Patterson. He connected me with Jane Mitchell, a property attorney with a reputation sharp enough to cut marble. Jane examined the report, whistled, and said, "If this data's correct, those homeowners are living on your land. And that forged survey is felony territory." She explained how original recorded deeds outweigh every modern HOA bylaw or zoning twist. My 1973 document wasn't dusty paper, it was legal gospel. Research confirmed our worst suspicions. The developer who'd built Sunset Hills submitted falsified surveys to expand the lots. When I refused early offers decades ago, they simply pretended my land ended sooner than it did. A whole neighborhood of lies sat neatly landscaped around me. Meanwhile, Sophia escalated her harassment campaign. Noise complaints about my rooster, health inspections for my compost pile, even code enforcement threats against my garden. Every envelope a new attempt to exhaust me into selling. Instead of breaking me, her arrogance tempered my resolve. Decades in construction had trained me to outlast storms, and this storm was about to get legal. Jane filed a boundary dispute in Superior Court. Within 48 hours, Sophia's lawyers countered with a mountain of accusations: harassment, elder abuse, emotional distress. The irony of wealthy neighbors claiming I was bullying them could have powered the town's streetlights. But the truth had weight. Support began trickling in. Other homeowners, journalists, even property rights groups curious about a retiree fighting multimillionaires. Suddenly, this quiet old surveyor had become a headline: the man who owned the mansions. Yet paper evidence wasn't enough. The HOA called an emergency meeting to address community disruption. Translation: a public ambush. And I planned to walk into that room armed, not with lawyers, but with GPS coordinates that would silence everyone. The community center buzzed louder than a beehive when I arrived for the meeting. Half the neighborhood had come to see me beg for forgiveness. Sophia sat at the head table, flanked by attorneys and board members in power suits. Her slideshow condemned me for violations diminishing property values. Each image showed my fence, shed, garden, the so-called evidence of trespass. The audience nodded along. Then she said, "Mr. Harrison, please present your defense." I wheeled up Jake's laptop, connected the projector, and smiled. "Folks, tonight you'll see what measurements say versus accusations." On screen appeared a drone photo. Entire neighborhood, bright red GPS boundary lines slicing through millionaire dreams. Gasps filled the hall. Pools, garages, bedrooms, all crossing my borders. Slide after slide, coordinates proved it. Sophia's luxury pool, my backyard. Nathan's garage, my property. Each claim layered with date-stamped data. When the fake 2010 survey appeared, with forged signatures and an extinct company name, the atmosphere shifted from disbelief to fury. Betty Harris stood up, voice trembling but clear, confirming she'd witnessed workers moving boundary markers during construction. Sophia tried to shout it all down. "This technology is unreliable. These claims absurd." I calmly lifted the handheld GPS, still receiving live satellite feed, its coordinates matching Jake's data to the inch. "Mathematics doesn't take sides," I said. The room erupted, neighbors arguing, board members whispering, Sophia turning pale. I packed my equipment and walked out through the chaos in complete peace. The truth was now public knowledge, impossible to bury under trimmed hedges and legal jargon. But when truth threatens millions in real estate, peace doesn't last long. The next morning, my lawyer called with a warning. Sophia had just hired the most expensive litigation team in the state. The real war for my land was only beginning. The courthouse looked like a movie premiere that morning. Media trucks, protesters, cameras flashing. People love a fight where truth goes up against money. Inside, Judge Margaret Chen presided with the calm of someone who's seen every legal circus imaginable. "This case," she said, "may redefine modern property law, Sophia's attorneys went first, 3 suits so sharp they could have sliced paper. They argued GPS data was unreliable, that practical boundaries mattered more than technical coordinates. Translation: let's pretend math doesn't count when it's inconvenient. Then Jane Mitchell rose. Her voice steady, her slides loaded. Science doesn't care about wealth. It cares about accuracy. Jake Miller demonstrated GPS coordinates right there in court. The data matched original survey stakes to within inches. Your Honor, he said, this is truth measured by satellites. The fake 2010 survey was next. Jake revealed its signatures belonged to people who died years earlier. The company behind it? Non-existent since 2008. The courtroom actually gasped. This wasn't confusion, it was fraud, Betty Harris testified. She'd watched construction workers shift my fence stakes decades earlier for new boundary updates. Her sincerity hit harder than any expert witness. Finally, Sophia took the stand. Under Jane's cross-examination, her confidence cracked. Mrs. Blackstone, can you provide the name of the person who ordered that 2010 survey? Jane asked. Silence. Sophia stammered, looked down, and muttered something about administrative delegations. The jury saw what mattered, guilt wrapped in foundation lipstick. 2 days of jury deliberations felt like 2 months. Every headline screamed predictions. I drank coffee, stared at the fence that started it all, and wondered, would truth actually count in a world run by lawyers? When Judge Chen returned, the courtroom froze. The court finds GPS coordinates properly verified constitute definitive boundary evidence. Ownership of the disputed land is awarded to Mr. Walter Harrison. For a moment, silence so thick it had weight. Then cheers erupted. Property rights advocates hugged strangers. Sophia's attorneys whispered about appeals. I just exhaled for the first time in months. The damages portion came next. The court ruled that each mansion owner owed me compensation for 15 years of unauthorized use. Sophia would pay rent to keep her infinity pool and tennis court intact. Nathan's 4-car garage, Elena's palace-sized bedroom extension, Jackson's chef-level patio, Bethany's elaborate fountain, all officially resting on my soil. Jane Mitchell leaned over and whispered, Congratulations, landlord. News spread faster than wildfire. Harrison v. Sunset Hills exploded across the nation. Articles, talk shows, endless interviews. I became an unwilling symbol of defiance. Proof a pension check can still beat a checkbook with 6 zeros. Walking out of the courthouse, flashbulbs lit the steps like confetti. Betty Harris waited with a basket of fresh vegetables from her garden, grinning ear to ear. Knew you'd win, Walter, she said. They built castles on the wrong kingdom. The world now knew I owned chunks of 5 mansions. But being right was one thing. Living alongside embarrassed millionaires who now owed me rent was going to be a whole different adventure. 12 months later, my mailbox sounds like a cash register. Each envelope neatly typed, each check signed with grudging precision. Sophia Blackstone, 2000. For the pool and tennis court. Nathan Cross, 2000. For the pool and tennis court. Nathan Cross, $2,500 for his couture garage. Real estate. Elena Foster, $2,500. For her master suite sprawl. Jackson Murphy, $12,500. For her master suite sprawl. Jackson Murphy, $1,800 for his outdoor kitchen. Bethany Wells, $200. For front yard access, she once bragged about at every brunch. Every payment a quiet apology written in ink. Betty Harris stepped up as my unofficial property manager, making sure I wasn't buried under paperwork or rich people complaints. Together we turned animosity into cooperation, even expanding my vegetable garden into a community plot. Imagine that. Neighbors once throwing lawsuits, now trading zucchini recipes. Local reporters kept the story alive, calling me the accidental landlord. Jake Miller's business exploded. Law schools cited our case. And HOA presidents everywhere updated their manuals in panic. Sophia changed too. The arrogance melted into genuine humility. She even invited me to her home, well, our home portion, to ask advice on the best fencing materials. Progress measured in humility per square foot. Everything had come full circle. My father's land, once threatened by greed, now paid for my grandkids' college funds. But as new letters poured in from folks fighting similar battles, I realized my story had become more than local legend. It was a roadmap, and I wasn't done teaching it. These days, my classroom smells like coffee and optimism. I teach weekend courses on GPS, surveying, and property rights law at the community college. Students lean forward like detectives learning how to expose invisible crimes. Technology, I tell them, is the modern shield for fairness. Satellites don't bow to bank accounts. They laugh, but they get it. Every spring, Betty and I host Community Verification Day. Families show up clutching plat maps, curious about their own fences. Jake calibrates his scanners. Kids chase the drones. It's become the friendliest science fair in county history. Sunset Hills has evolved, too. HOA meetings now include garden exchange tables and genuine laughter. The bitterness dissolved into something resembling respect. Maybe renting your tennis court from the old surveyor next door builds character. My mornings start with coffee and my rooster Bob announcing victory to the neighborhood. Not out of spite, it's just his job. I check rent statements, review legal forms, then help Jake evaluate new cases from other towns where elderly owners face similar scams. The money's nice. The peace is better. But the satisfaction, the sense that truth left a footprint nobody can erase, that's priceless. Yet even with life calm and measured, letters kept arriving from strangers begging for guidance. Could my fight ignite a larger movement? Maybe it already had. One quiet evening, I stood by the original fence my father built and watched the sun drop behind rooftops I technically owned. Funny how justice can change a skyline. Around the country, property owners now cite Harrison versus Sunset Hills when developers overstep. Jake and I help where we can, checking records, donating equipment, mentoring young surveyors, even Sophia reached out recently, not as an adversary but as an ally, inviting me to speak at a regional HOA conference about transparency and development. Life's full of plot twists. I still quote my father's advice to students and reporters alike. Land's like honesty. You lose it when you stop paying attention. To everyone watching, remember, power means nothing without proof. Write things down. Photograph stakes. Keep your paperwork sacred. When someone tries to shrink what's yours, measure twice and stand once. If Walter's battle made you believe fairness still matters, tap that like, hit subscribe, and share your own story of standing tall when the odds said, sit down. We celebrate truth-tellers here, because boundaries aren't just lines on maps. They're promises written in dirt and ink. And sometimes, defending them can turn a backyard garden into a revolution.